Hey, welcome back to part 2 of my Dune Explained video. I'm, I'm really sorry that it's taken a little while, if you care at all, and I also am really sorry that, there's not really a smooth transition, so if you missed part 1, I'm sorry. You should probably watch part 1 because none of this is gonna make any sort of sense. This is gonna start in the middle of a sentence, I think. So yeah, I'm really sorry.
Dr. Yue still feeling awful about what he's done, or what he's supposed to do, and he actually puts. Okay, this happens whenever the Harkonnens attack, basically. So Dr. Yue poisons Duke Leto and drugs Lady Jessica and Paul Atreides. Well, he doesn't poison Duke Leto. He drugs him, but he gives Duke Leto this false tooth, and he tells Duke Leto, bite the tooth whenever Baron Harkonnen is like near you, and it will spray out this poison. It will kill you, but it will also kill the Baron, and it will just be better for everyone. Like, sorry that you have to sacrifice yourself this way. And Duke Leto's like, what the hell is going on? And then passes out. And then Dr. Yue puts things in order for Lady Jessica and Paul Atreides to survive. He's fitted an ornithopter, which is their version of just like kind of basic spaceships that fly through the planet, like around the planet, kind of like helicopters. He's fitted this ornithopter with a secret compartment that has the ducal signet or ducal seal on the like on this panel, and whenever they open it up, it will have all the materials they need to survive in the desert and hopefully get to the Fremen. It's got still suits, it's got water, it's got tents, all sorts of things, and yeah. I'm sorry, before the whole tooth deal, Duke Leto is traveling through the palace of Arrakeen, and sees the dead body of the Shadow Mapes, which means we get our first dead person. Oh no! First dead person. And then the whole tooth thing happens between Dr. Yue and Duke Leto. And then the Harkonnens come in and they blast everything apart, essentially. They take down Arrakeen and take it back pretty quickly. Baron Harkonnen meets with Lady Jessica and Paul Atreides and is like, well, blah, 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 blah. I'm a douchebag. You guys aren't. Bleh. I'm going to kill your Duke. He orders them to be killed by means of abandonment in the desert. And so they get banished. They get banished to the desert. And then he meets with Dr. Yue. Him and Piter Dervise meet with Dr. Yue and Duke Leto, who is currently drugged and passed out. And behind Dr. Yue's back, Piter Dervise, stabs him a little bit. Just enough to kill him. So he's dead too. Meanwhile, Gurney and Thufir Hawat managed to escape. And, yeah, that's... Then Lady Jessica and Paul Atreides, as they're being flown out on an ornithopter, Lady Jessica notices Dr. Yue's symbol on some part of the ship, and she and Paul manage to escape their... their what's it called? they're constraints, and they commandeered the ship, basically. And they are now stuck in the desert. Meanwhile, the Duke Leto wakes up in front of Baron Harkonnen and remembers something vaguely about a tooth, and he breathes his breath. He bites down on the tooth, breathes the poison breath, and Baron Harkonnen manages to kind of get out of the way, and he uses his shielding mechanism, which is a thing throughout the universe. I haven't really mentioned it because that's the whole thing. But he manages to get out of the way and not get poisoned. But Piter, oh Piter, Piter's dead now too. Piter's very dead. And then Baron Harkonnen appoints Nefud as his new kind of right-hand man. He doesn't really play a huge role in the series, unfortunately. And that's basically how the book ends. The first part of the book. Pretty much your Act 1, and then your second act begins. The first book is split up into 3 individual segments. They're titled Book 1, Book 2, Book 3 within the one massive volume. And they each have their own little kind of first, second, and third acts. That's another thing that I find very interesting, is that even though each one definitely feels like an individual act of a larger story, each individual act also has their own individual 3-act structures. So anyway, it is also discovered that... well, no, this is now the second book. So Paul Atreides and Lady Jessica are wandering the desert. They run into the planetologist Keynes and Duncan Idaho, and they find out that Keynes is actually Liet, who was vaguely alluded to before, and he is the leader of the Fremen, and he has betrayed House Carino because he believes in Lady Jessica and... Oh wait, I also forgot to mark off Duke Leto. He's very dead. Duke Leto is extremely dead by the end of the first book, which is kind of unfortunate because I really like Duke Leto. And anyway, so the planetologist Keynes meets up with Lady Jessica and Paul, and Paul and Lady Jessica basically finally can fully convince him that they are part of this Chosen One prophecy, this fake thing constructed by the Bene Gesserit. And he buys into this, and he believes that Paul is possibly the only way for the Fremen to get what they want, which is essentially... Keynes believes that you can ecologically change Arrakis for the better through various means. It would take a lot of money and time, and they just don't do it because of that. And Paul promises Keynes that, hey, if my plan goes through, because Paul has started having these prescient visions of the future, but they're very vague. But he says, essentially, I have a plan. My plan is to marry Emperor Shaddam IV's daughter, Princess Arulon, and take over the throne by means of force, essentially. And Keynes goes, this plan doesn't sound too likely, but I will tell all the Fremen to definitely protect you at the very least and take care of you. And then, as that's going on, the Sardaukar come in and kill Duncan Idaho, who dies defending Paul and the Lady Jessica. To which Paul says there was a version of our present where Duncan should be here, which means Paul's vision at this point in time in particular isn't 100% correct. And that's fairly interesting. And then the Sardaukar, they take Keynes. They take him away, and we find out later on in the book that when they take him away, whatever, that whenever they take him away, he also ends up dying. He also ends up getting killed. Yeah, we'll just leave him there. He also ends up dying and getting killed, and that's a shame. Meanwhile, Lady Jessica and Paul escape again, and they run into Stilgar and his group of Fremen, which includes Chani, which is Stilgar's niece. So he was the brother of Keynes, and Chani is the daughter of Keynes. And also included in this group of Fremen that Lady Jessica and Paul run into are Hera and Jamis or Jamis. I've never learned exactly how to pronounce his name. They essentially, Stilgar isn't sold on allowing them in to their Fremen group. And, well, they promise Paul safe passing, but they don't promise Lady Jessica until she proves herself with the Weirding Way and promises that she will teach the Fremen the Weirding Way. And Stilgar is very firm in the beliefs of the Fremen and goes, oh my god, the Weirding Way, she's the chosen one, so is this Paul kid, we gotta let them in. So, Lady Jessica and Paul are basically now Fremen, because for all intents and purposes at this point, House Atreides is dead. We're gonna just, oh god, oh no, oh no, oh no, we're gonna put Lady Jessica here, because she is now Fremen, and so is Paul. Paul is now Fremen as well. And in this process, Jamis, he goes, now wait a minute, I don't agree with this. They've pushed their way into our society, and I don't trust them, and I challenge Paul to a duel. And they duel in a knife fight, and Paul wins. And poor Jamis, or Jamis, however you pronounce it, is no more. He's dead now too. So we've got quite a couple people dead now. And Paul then takes on the name, what does he take? He takes on the name Usul, which is his personal name that will be used by friends and family. And then he takes on Muad'Dib. He takes on Paul Muad'Dib specifically, because that will be his name for outside of personal relations, basically. And Muad'Dib is a name that he heard being chanted by a fanatical jihad in one of his visions that will cause the death of billions of people, all in his name, and he is terrified by it. And almost every decision he makes in this book is him attempting to maneuver around. It's him attempting to maneuver around that from happening. And that's another very interesting aspect to the book to me, is this guy who's he's just terrified of causing billions of deaths but he also wants to get revenge and avenge his dead father. And it doesn't, yeah, but the only way possible is to cause this insane jihad in his name. So Stilgar and Chani, he's introduced to Chani, and they kind of got a thing going on. They kind of start liking each other pretty immediately. Chani is someone who had been popping up in Paul's dreams, because he would have dreams of the future at the beginning of the book. And so there's a little bit of a thing popping up between those two. And Stilgar respects Lady Jessica and respects Paul greatly. And they also they go back to their camp, and Paul is introduced to Hera, who used to be Jamis's wife, and she is now offered as a concubine, as a wife, as whatever Paul wants her to be. And Paul basically goes, okay, well, by Fremen law, you have to serve under me for 2 years, but I will treat you great, and I will let you be free immediately after that. So, Paul doesn't want anything to do with Hera, basically. And much to Hera's dismay, because she thinks she's still young and capable. But yeah, so she is his responsibility, and so are her 2 sons. And Paul acknowledges this and treats her well and takes care of her sons as well. Meanwhile, we've got Gurney and Thufir Hawat. Thufir Hawat has been mentat-napped, we'll say, and taken by the Harkonnens. He is now Baron Vladimir Harkonnen's main mentat, and he has been secretly poisoned without his knowledge. He is he's basically enslaved, and yeah, not much else to really say on that part so far. And then Gurney Halleck has been working with pirates and smugglers for this next course of the book. The second act you can really condense, actually, because it has a lot of chapters of Lady Jessica and Paul wandering the desert, and then it's got a lot of introductions to Fremen culture and stuff. There's actually not a whole lot with Thufir and Gurney. What happens with Gurney is he actually has a great chapter. I love the chapter with him where he is dealing with the loss of a lot of his soldiers, and the weight is finally just kind of getting to him. And one of his soldiers who's about to die asks him to play a song, because Gurney is famous for his musical capabilities. And it's a really touching chapter. I really like that chapter a lot. But anyway, that's kind of the deal that's going on with basically all of this side of the Dune society. The second portion, the second act of the book is very Fremen heavy. In this one, you learn that the Fremen can ride sandworms. You learn more about how they trade in water, and there's lots of stuff. And then you also learn about the water of life, which is how Fremen Reverend Mothers become in tune with all of the past Reverend Mothers. And Lady Jessica is now tasked to become the next Reverend Mother, basically. And she accepts, and she becomes a Reverend Mother. Turns out she has a daughter inside her. She has a baby, which she's aware of and Paul is aware of. I kind of forgot to bring it up. She has a baby inside her. It is Duke Leto's baby, and she is she doesn't she's terrified to do the water of life while pregnant because that's not something you should do, but she does it anyway. And yeah, that sucks greatly later on in the series and kind of in this book. And after that, Paul and Chani kind of fall in love with each other, and they definitely they get together by the end of this book. They kiss, and they are together. They are a couple now. So your third and final act starts up, and you've got Alia has now been born. She's been born with all of her genetic memories, so she knows things that babies should not know. She's about 4 whenever the third act picks up, because there's a time jump. She's like, yeah, no, I think she's like 2 or 3, and she can speak full sentences. She's completely aware of all sorts of things, of innuendo, all sorts of stuff, and that's terrifying, and that is considered an abomination by the Bene Gesserit. And you don't really know why in this book, but the whole abomination thing becomes very important by the time of the second book, Dune Messiah, comes around. Or no, the third book. The third book, Children of Dune, tackles the subject of what is called a preborn. Tackles that very heavily. Meanwhile, Paul has risen to power. He practically has more control over the Fremen than Stilgar does, who is like the leader of the Fremen now that Liet Kynes is dead. And he has his own death commando squad called the Fadakin. And he and Chani have had a child, Leto II. Named after his late father. And yeah, things are going fine. You never actually get a single chapter with Leto II. The beginning of Act 3 opens with Paul really struggling to wake up and understand what were dreams of the future, what was the past, and what is happening in the current moment. And I find that opening fascinating. I love that opening a lot. And then the book moves on. We get finally another Fade chapter. Fade has worked with Thufir Hawat to rig a gladiatorial fight, essentially, in his favor. I don't remember all the specifics of that chapter. You get introduced to Lady Fenring and Count Fenring a little bit more in depth, and Count Fenring is explaining to Baron Harkonnen like the deal, and he also tells Lady Fenring that we need to preserve the Harkonnen bloodline for the Imperial line and all that. So she does actually get with Fade. Beast Raban has been placed in charge of Arrakis for the time being because Baron Harkonnen wants Beast Raban to essentially use and abuse Arrakis and its citizens until they are just completely tired of him, and then he will introduce Fade, and Fade will be beloved, and Fade will be just adored. That's Baron Harkonnen's plan, and that's essentially the deal. That's what goes on. Baron Harkonnen kind of threatens Count Fenring and the Emperor a little bit, but doesn't get too far into there. Meanwhile, Paul finds Gurney in the desert with his pirates and smugglers, brings him back over to basically, let's just say this is the Fremen side, which is now essentially just the Atreides. The Fremen are now just the Atreides family, and that will be very apparent in future novels and books. Oh God, what have I done? What have I created? What monstrosity is this? Oh no. So anyway, yeah, the House Atreides is basically just the Fremen now. They've become married in a literal sense because of Paul and Chani and Leto and all that. And Gurney's now there. There's a great chapter. Gurney still thinks Lady Jessica is responsible for betraying Duke Leto. He's about to kind of kill her. Paul comes in. There's a whole nice heart-to-heart moment between all three of them. Love that chapter. Love that moment. They all forgive each other. It's a great thing. Paul realizes that he has to, before he can actually do this final battle, essentially, that has been building up now, he has to, what's the word? He has to become the Kwisatz Haderach, and he does so by taking the water of life, and he takes it without Chani or Lady Jessica's or anyone's knowledge, and he nearly dies, but he survives it, and everything's cool, everything's fine. And then basically your final part of the book comes in after a little bit of between Stilgar and Paul. The Fremen think that Paul should fight Stilgar to the death and become the true leader of the Fremen, and Paul says, no, I am Muad'Dib. I am not the leader of the Fremen. I am the religious icon of the Fremen. There is a difference. And Paul then prepares to lead his Feydekin and Fremen into battle, and he leaves Chani and Leto II, Chani, Leto II, and Alia behind, with Hera as well, in this separate city that they think is going to be safe. The Emperor has landed, and Paul is pretty pissed off. The Emperor and the Harkonnens are like together. They've landed. They're talking. Thufir Hawat's like blah 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 blah, and all sorts of stuff. So here we go. It's the final act, man. Like everyone's on Arrakis, including the Spacing Guild. We finally get to see some Spacing Guild members. None of the Navigators, but they are members of the Spacing Guild. And Paul leads his army to where they're all chilling, fighting all of them, winning very hard because the Fremen are just that awesome. And meanwhile, Beast Raban is sent to where Chani, Alia, Lady Jessica, and Leto II, and Hera, all of them were kind of left. That's where Beast Raban leads a troop of men, and well, we find out that little baby Leto gets killed off by Beast Raban, and Alia gets kidnapped by both parties, and she goes to Baron Harkonnen, and she's like, you don't understand, I allowed myself to be captured because I would rather face your fat, evil tomfoolery than face my brother and tell him that I let his son die. And so she then stabs Baron Harkonnen with a Gom Jabbar and kills him. Baron Harkonnen is killed by his granddaughter. She also reveals... Oh yeah, that's a whole thing I forgot to cover. Yeah, Baron Harkonnen is actually the biological father of Lady Jessica, which makes Paul his grandson. I forgot to talk about that. Oops. Well, he's dead now. And she reveals that the Atreides line lives on. And yeah, Paul comes in with his wife and mother and all that, and Thufir Hawat sees that Lady Jessica's still alive, and he's like, I'm gonna kill you. And then Paul stops him and explains the stuff, and Thufir realizes, oh god, I'm a douchebag, and he then succumbs to his poisoning. And then Fade challenges Paul to one final duel. Well, Paul tells the Emperor what's going on. He's like, hey, I'm going to marry your wife, or your daughter. You're going to go to Seleucus Secundus. I'm going to control all of Arrakis, and I'm going to control all of the universe, and that's just how it's going to be. I'm going to have a monopoly, and you can't stop me, because I already basically control Arrakis with the Fremen. And the Emperor's like, how about you kill Fade in order to do this? And they duel, and Paul kills Fade. Paul kills off Fade. And then marries Princess Arulan. Like, he marries Princess Arulan, but tells Chani it's just a title thing, and that Princess Arulan will never know an ounce of the love that he has for Chani. Like, she will never feel any sort of love that he gives Chani. And the book ends on Lady Jessica going to Chani and saying that even though that now they are viewed as concubines, in history books they will be known as wives. That's the final line of the book. And it's very interesting. That's kind of all there is to it. We don't really know what happens to Beast Raban or Nefud. I think Nefud might die, but don't quote me on that. Otherwise, that's basically Dune. This is completely self-explanatory. I feel like anyone should be able to follow this this graph. Yeah. Yeah. All right, that was a simple explanation to Dune. Very straightforward. Like I said, it's a very easy to follow and very it's very reader friendly. I think anyone can pick up Dune and enjoy it. I think it's mass appeal. I think it really should be everyone's first sci-fi book they read. Yeah, it is. It's a simple book. I don't think I missed anything in my description. I think I covered every single scene in every single chapter. That's not true. None of what I'm saying is true. I understand why people don't like Dune. I understand that can be a little difficult to get into. But I like it. Also, yes, I'm wearing a completely different outfit than what I was at the beginning of the video. This took a little bit of time to make, to kind of go back, look at some notes, cross-reference it with what I've got and what I remembered. I just got a text message. Yeah. And now who knows how long it will take for me to edit this. Thank you for watching. Once again, my name's Dylan, also known as Dark Moon on the internet. I sometimes ramble about Dune and other things, and I have a Twitter. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter, where I mainly post film hot takes and film reviews from my Letterboxd. I'm going to be posting some stuff on my YouTube more regularly now. Some more kind of edited stuff. Some stuff with a little bit more production value than this. But I thought this would be kind of fun to just goof around with, especially with the upcoming Denis Villeneuve film. I am ecstatic about that. I think it looks great. So yeah, if you're interested in sticking around, go ahead and click like, subscribe, all that good stuff, you know. And thank you for watching, I guess. Yeah. Bye-bye.